Hi there, thanks for watching. I'm Julian Glover with ABC 7 News, joined with ABC 7 News political reporter Monica Madden and ABC 7 News insider Phil Mateer. We are here with a conversation for the Oakland mayoral candidates, the top two that have raised the most funds. And we're joined now by former Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who has represented the East Bay, who did represent the East Bay since 1998. Thanks so much for joining us.
Nice being with you.
We're happy you're with us today. We want to start with the reason that we're here, and that, of course, is the recall of the former Oakland mayor, Shing Tao. You were against the recall. As you said, you are against all recalls. We just want to start with orienting Oakland voters with what you would do differently from the previous mayor.
Well, first of all, I want to be a mayor that can bring all parts of our community, all sectors together to solve problems. I have, for example, the endorsement of the Chamber of Commerce and many in the business community, as well as our labor union, brothers and sisters, Central Labor Council. I have the endorsement of people who were involved in the recall and against the recall. And that's important because to have landlords and tenants, 5 of the city council members have endorsed me, so virtually all of the council members, 7 former mayors and city administrators. That sends a signal, I think, that I can negotiate and bring people together who have to come together to solve the problems in Oakland. And I think that's a big distinction between myself and other candidates. And I have a history of doing that. And I've had to fight for Oakland my entire tenure in Congress and prior to that in the California legislature. So I'm a negotiator to try to get problems solved, to bring people together, to stop all the divisiveness and the bigotry, the backbiting, which is taking place in a lot of ways. But also, I'm a fighter for Oakland's fair share of what we deserve.
You know, Oakland's paradox is that it's a city that is highly intelligent. It's got a great voter base, good economy, not the best, okay, really. But homes there routinely sell for $800,000, even in the flatlands these days. And people put their houses on the market and they get $100,000 or $200,000 more than what they were asking for. So it's a hot place to be, and it has money. So why, over the year after year after year after year, have we seen Oakland just come up short when it comes time to pay the bills? Why is it always in deficit? You must have had some time to take a look at this train wreck before you decided to hop in the engine.
Yeah, I've taken a look at it, though, over the years, being a member of the Appropriations Committee and the Budget Committee. I had to take a look at the city's finances because I directed billions of dollars over the years to Oakland, and I certainly wasn't going to deliver this and target these dollars, federal dollars, to organizations in a city that could not move forward. And I believe and know that Oakland and that we're in crisis. But when you look at the budget, a lot of the issues that I see are structural. And I'll give you an example that we have to deal with through, and I want to have as mayor a forensic audit to look at where the waste and abuse and fraud could be in the city departments. But I brought in the millions of dollars for COVID relief to save lives and livelihoods. Those millions of dollars have created now a structural imbalance because the budget has been based on what you say budgeting was $100. I brought in, say, $200. And so the budget continues to be based on $300 instead of the $100. So these are structural issues that I know about that have to be dealt with. So the only way we can get our budget under control is by raising revenue and reducing expenses. And that's what, as mayor, I intend to do.
How long do you think we would need to wait to get the results of this forensic audit, knowing just the kind of perilous situation that Oakland is in when it comes to the budget deficit?
Well, I'm not saying we wait for the results of the forensic audit. We have an auditor who has already conducted an audit that the implementation needs to occur in terms of the follow-up and the actual making sure that audit, the recommendations are adhered to. And so this is a piece of what I want to do as mayor. At the same time, we have to raise revenue and we have to, as I say, steady the ship. We have to continue with our collections. You know, Oakland did not collect fees, fines, permits, business tax license during COVID, and still has not, come through. We're on the right track, but we still need to raise revenue. And I also support Measure 8, the sales tax increase, to make us put us on par with other cities.
Politicians like to say yes. I mean, they just do. They don't like to say no. But the mayor of Oakland is going to have to be in a position to say no. You're going to be saying no to a lot of people, including people that are supporting you right now.
Well, I said no to George Bush, and
He
I was
didn't
the
vote
only
for you.
one. But I'm telling you, I was able to work to put together a global AIDS initiative. We have saved 25 million lives, and so I think when you talk about who you say no to, when you're looking at balancing a budget, you have to bring people together for a common good to make life better in Oakland, and everything's on the table. I have said before that services to Oakland are important to me, core services. And when you look at core services, they need to be strengthened and enhanced. The residents deserve that. So when you cut jobs, you're cutting core services. So everything's on the table. We've got to look at revenue, and we've got to look at how we cut expenses. And there are a menu of cuts, but I have always said that that would be the last decision that I would want to make, because services are extremely important, and the city deserves the services.
What do you see as the core services that you would not want to cut from, and then fat that you think should be trimmed immediately?
Well, I think the core services, you know, I would not want to cut core services that require the public safety to be strengthened. Public services, police and fire, extremely important. That's 70% of the general fund, 30% everything else. And so, you know, cutting services means going into that 30%. And what I think we can do, though, is look at that 70% of the general fund with regard to police overtime and the overtime of the overtime, and see if we can find ways to increase revenue without making major cuts, knowing that we're going to have to cut. But services such as making sure that rental assistance, making sure that people have access to the permitting process. We need to expedite permits, access to city departments in terms of access to our economic development, our small business assistance, and public safety is top priority, so we have to make sure that those services are maintained and enhanced.
On public safety, of course, as you just said, it's a top priority. It's a big issue for all of the residents in Oakland. What would be your immediate plan for the first 100 days if elected, and then what would you try to fix in the long term?
And public safety, remember, every neighborhood, and this is one compelling factor about why I want to run and win this race. I heard from everyone in the city, from Deep East Oakland to Rock Ridge, North Oakland, public safety's top concern. Okay. The voters passed with a broad coalition. In fact, a large part of that coalition supports me for mayor, to pass Measure NN. We passed that in November. That required the city to fund and to come up with a strategy for 700 police officers. We're under 700 now. We're in mid-600s. Also to strengthen our violence prevention efforts, which of course is important through ceasefire, and then to look at how we strengthen our 911 response time. And in fact, and a lot of people are not quite sure that macro works. I believe we need to strengthen macro, which is mental health intervention. We don't need to call the police department if people are having mental health challenges, and police need to be able to police, and that's the important part. So Measure N is what I would want to immediately execute on, and see how we get to where Measure N laid out. That's the North Star. And then finally, I'll say I've worked with Senator Jesse Arreguín. He is the chair of the Public Safety Committee in Sacramento. And he and I have talked about a regional strategy. When I was there with Tom Bates, I think you may remember, Phil, we had a regional public safety corridor, because so much of what we do on public safety and the success of it will be working with our regional partners. So I would immediately strengthen what Supervisor Nate Miley and Chair Jesse Arreguín has started.
You know, it's public safety, you know, for years and years, public safety, everybody thought police. That was it, police. And incarceration debates. And what the latest one was Oakland's chase policy, for example, or pursuit policy. What do you think of that pursuit policy, and would you change it like the governor has asked?
Well, the mayor does not has no authority over changing it, but I certainly would weigh in and talk about what I believe need to happen. I believe the police chief is the authority for changing the policy. Now, I know they're looking at it now, the police commission. Now, a couple of things. I think that we need to moderate this policy. We need to come to some kind of framework that allows for people who are coming into Oakland to commit crimes know they can't do that because they will be arrested.
Is that mostly just messaging?
Also, pardon?
Is that just a change in messaging for the most
No,
part?
no, no, not a change in messaging. I think that we need to have moderate the policy, to be able to come up with some kind of an appropriate policy, because we do know that police chases kill people. They hurt people, and in communities of color disproportionately. And so we need to have a policy that does both. And I believe that we can do that. And so I'm not for keeping the policy as is, but I would, as mayor, indicate what I think would work to the police chief.
And what do you think could work?
Well, that would be up to the input from the police chief as a public safety official. But I think that whatever they come up with has to allow the police to be able to do their job, so that people know that they're doing their job and not coming in to commit crimes. And I would leave it up to the experts to determine that, but I certainly think it needs to be revised a bit.
I want to talk about police staffing, as we've kind of touched on, and how that is intrinsically, obviously, tied to the budget. You have previously said that you would like to get to 850 officers. Lauren Taylor said he'd like to get to 800 officers. He says 3 academies in 3 years. How do you get to that even higher number of 850 officers, and how soon could that that force of officers be hitting the streets of Oakland?
Yeah, well, you know, we have the police academies, but we also have a budget deficit that won't allow for us to you know, maintain the 3 academies in the next couple of years. And I believe what we have to do, and Measure NN authorized $47 million, but we need to look at how we get there by looking at efficiencies in the police department. For example, we have some police officers who may be able to police if, in fact, their job was performed by other non-sworn officers, civilianize some parts of the police force. We may be able to gain more police officers on the street. Also, police accountability is so important, and we still have this federal monitor, millions of dollars. And we need to look at why that is the case. That's another hit on the budget. But also, we have to have the tasks and the tests for police accountability to be met. And so we need to look at that also, but also community policing is extremely important. And I believe that in moving forward to the 700, I don't think we're going to get to 800, 850 anytime soon. But I do believe we can work with Merritt College. They have a school, you know, a certificated program on criminal justice that we could find as a feeder into our police department. So there are other ways, I think, to recruit. And also, it's important to, though, as we do this, make sure that people have the relationship with the police officers, because I know many, their morale is down. They believe that the police officers don't respond appropriately in enough time, which, of course, if you're short of staff, they don't. And so and as mayor, I would want to foster better community relations with the police and the communities.
So you mentioned non-sworn officers. Is that something that you feel as though that you could target most expeditiously to get more non-sworn officers that could, as I'm assuming alluding to, could handle things like, you know, parking tickets or, you know.
Well, code enforcement, for example. Code enforcement, yeah. And I think that also technology. Some jurisdictions use technology to free up police officers.
Speaking of that, what is your opinion of drones and cameras, the technology? Some people say it's a way to do it. Other people say that's Big Brother coming in and imposing. So
we have to have that
Have
balance.
that debate,
yeah, well, yeah, and we have to have that balance because civil liberties are extremely important in any policy. But also technology can be used for good. And so I am cautious about any technology, but I certainly know we're in.
Would you support, say, drone pursuits?
Well, I would have to see what that, and you know, I know they're winged there are airplanes that I've talked to several members of the council about to use. We would have to see what the civil liberties support, or what that means, and in terms of what it means for safety. So again, Phil, we need to look at how we use technology within the context of protecting civil liberties. But I think they can be used just like AI for good, but we have to have guardrails.
Go ahead.
I was going to move on unless if you had a follow-up question. Okay, going back to the city's budget deficit, historic budget deficit, you have said that it is a bad idea for the city to tie the sale of the Oakland Coliseum to some of our future budget success. So what happens if that sale doesn't go through under your watch?
Well, again, had I been mayor, I would not have tied it to the sale of the Coliseum. Also, I do know that the city's budget.
You're opposed, so you're not in favor of selling the Coliseum?
No. I would not be in favor of linking it to the city budget.
Okay.
Okay. We've got to do something. We have a beautiful venue. We have an East Oakland community that deserves the economic development and jobs. This could be a tourist hub, so we need to move forward and develop with the neighborhood input this part of the city and the Coliseum. But having said that, had I been mayor, I would not have linked it to the budget. Now, the city has already budgeted out without the sale. They're in the sort of backup plan. And so it's not, I don't believe, going to really impact the budget moving forward if it doesn't go through, but they're already using a budget. They developed a budget without the amount of money from the sale.
What would you think of partnering or making the city a partner in the development deal so it continues to get money as opposed to a sale? In other words, stop the sale and renegotiate be a partnership.
I'd have to look at that, Phil. I think that we need to look at all options, and whatever makes sense that the residents and the council and the mayor could approve together, we should do. But I'm not prepared to say what we should do at this point, because this is, you see what happens. We have to have some form of transparency, and we have to know exactly what we're going to get into. And we have to have public input and support for whatever the city, if the city were to do this, we would have to move forward together.
One of those options that voters will be looking at when they drop that ballot in the mail, if it's today, for example, or when they head to the polls on April 15th, is Measure A, which would add 0.5% on the sales tax. For Oakland residents that are frustrated and saying the city can't manage the money that we're giving it now, why should we give the city of Oakland even more funds? I know you're in favor of Measure A. How do you persuade those voters, and what do you do with the budget if Measure A does not pass and that $30 million over 10 years is not coming the city's way?
Well, it's either cuts and revenue. It's both. We have to raise more revenue, and that's why I support it. And I believe residents in Oakland understand that this deep hole that we're in the budget didn't just start this year, last year, year before. This has begun over the years. And so I think this is catch up now. And I hope the voters vote for it. But if not, we would have to go back to the drawing board. And we would have to look at how we raise additional revenue to cover and address that 20 to 30 million, and how we make whatever efficiencies must be made, whatever cuts must be made to be able to balance the budget. No one said it's going to be easy, but we'll have to do that.
And what would that look like? What would some of those cuts potentially be? With or without the sale, there are going to be cuts that have to happen somehow, with or without Measure A. There are tough decisions you'll have to make if elected mayor. Where do you cut?
Before you cut, again, let's look at where we can find efficiencies within the department. Where are people working, for example, that are not delivering core services, and can we do something else with those jobs? And are the vacancies that need to be filled? I mean, there are other ways, and we want to balance the budget. But as I said, talking about where we're going to cut at this point doesn't make sense, because we have to look at every which way to balance the budget before we get to that point. and I'm telling you, I believe that there are efficiencies within these departments. There's overtime, there's accountability, there's transparency systems that we have to put in place. So we really know. I know that you look at the encampment policy, for example, I believe it's 11% of the fines have been collected. Only 3 people are in the department. There should be 8. And so we have to look at how we collect more fines. And does that make sense to cut people again in that department if it's going to bring in more revenue or less revenue if we cut?
I think you could agree that we're not going to find $130 million worth of efficiencies, right?
No, we're not. But we're going to have to look at how we raise additional revenue. And there are tax revenues coming in, hopefully, to the county that Oakland, and I would demand a fair share of that. Measure W, for example, that will directly impact what we're doing, and that's the housing initiative that has been in litigation. Millions of dollars, and Oakland should be able to get our fair share. Again, that's a strategy. So we have to put everything on the table and not only look at cuts. As I said, I'm prepared, but we have to look at everything else also.
You know, for years you represented Oakland, but you represented Oakland in Washington, and you had a perception of Oakland city government. What's the biggest eye-opener you've had since you've come back, said, yes, I'm running, and people start showing you actually how the place works or doesn't work? What's the biggest shock you've had?
Well, I kind of know how it works, Phil. I live here.
I know, but a lot of people say it doesn't work. The potholes here, there's no answer.
But what
here.
I'm saying, I'm a resident, so I know I have to deal with the city also as a resident. So I understand the passing the buck. I understand people not knowing who's responsible for what. I understand the accountability systems are not in place. And it's important that people understand this is not necessarily a strong mayor form of government. It's a hybrid. It's a strong city manager form of government. And I know for a fact that I would want to see a charter commission or charter committee to look at what the voters and the residents want. Do they want a strong city manager, city administrator form of government, to have a professionally run city like I think Phoenix maybe, or do they want a strong city manager, mayor's form of government where the buck stops with the mayor? In the meantime, what I am saying within the context of this hybrid form of governance, that I'll write my own job description within the charter to make it as strong of a mayor form of government as I can. And that means I'm going to meet with the department heads, with the city administrator, and I'm going to be a person, and whether I'm in the Congress or wherever, legislature, running a business, I know how to manage and fill gaps. I know when there are communication gaps. I know when there are overlaps in systems. I know job responsibilities and who should be accountable to whom. It's not happening right now, and I would want to tighten that up.
Okay, I want us to take a look at video for our next topic that you're going to see on your screen. This is video of the homeless encampments on East 12th Street. This was taken on Saturday, but of course, we know this has been an issue for quite some time.
No kidding. Homelessness is still one of the most persistent problems across the state. The governor, everybody is trying to weigh in on it. Alameda County has stabilized its numbers, but a lot of those people are now in Oakland, and that population has grown by some 9%. Disproportionate number are African Americans, and mental health issues, drug issues, a whole slew of things in there. All right, your main opponent says he wants to keep them away from schools, out of the public parks, and wants to enforce that. And the question is, where do you stand on that, and where do you feel about the possibility of police moving in, citing people and saying you got to either take shelter or go to jail?
I don't believe we need to send unsheltered people to jail. I still believe housing is a basic human right, and communities and children in sensitive spots deserve to be livable communities, and you shouldn't have to worry about encampments or people who are drug addicted, mental health challenges, or who provide or present a basic harm to communities. And so we have to look at it from a variety of perspectives. One thing I would want to do is to execute on the encampment policy. We need to make sure that we have better outreach so that unsheltered people are provided the a third are drug addicted, third mentally challenged, a third life circumstances. Everybody on the streets have life circumstances, but make sure we have the outreach that's strong and robust.
But
and
what if they say no?
Okay, let me tell you, what if they say no? We have to keep at it, and they need to know that there will be consequences. And the part about saying no is most people who say no, a large portion, have been on the streets for a long time. It's home now, and we have to understand our policy needs to be able to get people off of the streets as soon as possible, because once it becomes home after a week or two, families come, then you have communities living on the street, then you have encampment policies. So we have to change the policies also and do this on the front end. And you have to have a cadre, a team, a case management team of people doing this, and it's not going to be easy. And we have to make sure.
But what if they say no? I mean, with San Francisco has the same problem. It's something, they got 1/3 that just say no. We're not. For whatever reason, that's on your plate, Madam Mayor. If you're mayor, that's going to be on you.
And then for those folks, what are the consequences if we're not going to arrest them? Are you going to
cite them?
Take advantage of the Grant's decision in the Supreme Court, cite them, fine them? I mean, what do those consequences look like?
I think first, warnings are important. Secondly, we have to find out and make sure that there's some affordable housing, some supportive housing, some transitional housing. Know that they will be sent there, or rather than to jail. And I do believe we need to exercise all options before they get cited and put into jail, because that is going to just create another problem. And I think there are ways to do that. There are enough studies and enough data to show what to do with people who've been unsheltered for a long period of time. And that is, we have to do this right, and we have to do the warnings, make sure they know what's going to happen, what the consequences are, make sure that they get the services at the same time. I mean, a lot of drugs are being dealt in these encampments, and so we have to have interventions on that front also. And you know, it's hard. I mean, and I've seen refugee camps all over the world, and I mean, this is America. This is not unusual for any major city right now. I've seen cities with encampments as terrible as Oakland. But we have to do this better, and we're not doing it the way I believe we need to do it. And it's got to be sustained, consistent. We have to have people out there, outreach workers. We have to have citations. We have to have people know that there are consequences. We have to decide how many times we're going to talk to them to get them to move, and we have to be forceful with it. But I'm not one for saying, okay, you go to jail if you don't move, and arresting people. And we have to live within kind of those parameters, and I think we can do it if we do it right.
There is an ad going out right now by Lauren Taylor, one of your competitors, where he calls you a blast from the past. What do you make of him seeming to bring your age into the equation? Obviously, this is on the backdrop of former President Joe Biden being pushed out of the 2024 presidential race because of his age, and questions about his ability to be able to get the job done.
Well, you know, first of all, I don't talk about people's personal issues. I think that's, and my age is my personal issue, which is fine. Everybody knows how old I am, and I'm proud of the fact, flash from the past. My past has been pretty amazing in terms of what I've been able to deliver for Oakland and its residents and the 12th Congressional District, in terms of the billions of dollars, in terms of really being able to use my experience to not only negotiate, but to be a fighter for Oakland. And also, experience matters, and it's very important that Oakland have a mayor who can pick up the phone and call businesses, philanthropy, members of Congress, elected officials from around the country, and also one who can help with the port. This is an international city, and I know the world in which we live. I brought millions of dollars into the port to create economic opportunity and good paying jobs. So I think wisdom matters, and I'm really proud of being a flash from the past, because I hope my past is informative for people who don't know what I've done. I hope they will look and check my record and say that, oh yeah, you know, that's an indicator of what she will do here for Oakland. And when you look finally at core services, every day I run into people who thank me here in Oakland for getting them $150,000 from Social Security, $80,000 from SSI, for this, for that. Every day, core services, constituent services are important, and I bring that to the table. And people are going to decide who they want to vote for. But these little subtle hits about personal issues, you know, I could do that also, but I'm not doing that. And, you know, we have to kind of evaluate people based on what they think they bring to the table and who can move Oakland forward and who can bring some unity to solve these problems. And given my history and who I am, I'm proud of my past, and I want to shine this light, this flash into the future to make Oakland that shining light that we know that it is.
That is all the time we have. Former Congresswoman Barbara Lee, we really appreciate you joining us for this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.